theyeshiva.net.
There's a very famous pasuk in Parshas Mishpatim that everybody knows, where the Torah says, Midvar sheker tirchak. You should distance yourself from words of falsehood. And this mitzvah, this commandment, is manifested in many different halachos, many different laws of Judaism, which are all derivatives of this basic premise and principle, midvar sheker tirchak, distance yourself, remain far away from sheker, from lies, from falsehood. The most serious place, the most serious way where this is manifested in Jewish law is a phenomenon called edus sheker, false testimony. When somebody doesn't only utter a lie, but the lie has legal ramifications because they utter the falsehood in court as a witness. And on this we have one of the 10 commandments, Aseres Hadibris, Parshas Yisroi. The 9th commandment of the 10 is what? Lo yisana v'reyacha eid shaker. Don't serve as a false witness against a fellow human being. Or in Mishpatim, al toshes yadcha im rasha liyos eid chamas. Don't join hands with another false witness because the court may require 2 witnesses. Midvar sheker tirchak, remain far away from lies. Here is how it used to work in practicality. The Mishnah in Tractate Sanhedrin, which is dedicated to courts and witnesses, and the Gemara Masechta Sanhedrin, explain the process, and the Rambam, the great codifier of Jewish law, who has a section in Mishnah Torah called Hilchos Edus, the laws of witnesses, formulates halachically how it used to happen. And he says, the Rambam in chapter 17 of the laws of Edus, the laws of witnesses, he says, let's say you are surrounded by many people and you know them to be great sages. Not only great sages, but great men of righteousness, or women of righteousness. People saturated with chachma and yira, wisdom and fear of God. And they tell you, Rabbi Yid, we want to tell you, we have seen this and this individual transgress this and this sin. We have seen him borrow $1,000. We've seen Reuven borrow $1,000 from Shimon. You have 10 great tzaddikim telling you the story. Can't you serve as a witness? Can't you trust them? They're reliable people. People trust them. Can't you now come to court and say, I'm a witness? And the answer is, even though you may believe it, and even though you may trust them, and your feeling or conviction may be that it's true, you are forbidden to give testimony about this unless you have seen it with your own eyes, or perhaps the borrower has shared with you the story and told you, I have borrowed $1,000 from him and I want you as a witness. And if you heard the story from 100 people or 1,000 people, trustworthy people, we're not talking about rabble-rousers, troublemakers, and you go and you testify in court, you transgressed one of the 10 commandments, you're considered a liar. Why? Because a witness doesn't mean I heard the story, I read it, I saw a WhatsApp. It's a rumor, everybody's talking about it. That's not an aid. An aid means I observed it, I was there, or I know it firsthand because the borrower appointed me as his witness. And therefore, Bezdin, every court, would speak to every witness that showed up, even for a monetary dispute, maybe a dispute about $10, maybe a dispute about a single dollar, maybe a dispute about $1 million. This was irrelevant. But before anything happened, before any verdict, they would speak very, very harshly to each one of the witnesses, including the monetary witnesses. What would they say? So I quote the Rambam, I'm going to quote his words and translate. Keitzad ma'aymen alei dei momoin, ma'aymen alein b'fnei hakoil. In front of everybody, They would employ words that were intense. We notify them the power, the momentum, the ferocious negative power of false testimony. And the shame, the boishes from the word busha, the shame of a person who testifies falsely in this world, and the boishes, the shame in the next world. Then you send everybody out, and you leave in the room only the one of the witnesses, the older one or the greater one, and you ask him, how do you know that Reuven owes Shimon money? If he said, because he told me, that's meaningless. Unless he says, in front of us, in front of the two witnesses, he confessed that he owes the money, or I saw the loan, then they brought in the second person, they checked him out in the same way. If their words corroborated each other, if they were consistent with each other, they would continue to discuss it. If there was a big debate, they would debate it until they gave the verdict. When we think about this, this seems like a strange phenomenon. Why? You're talking here about Eidei Mammon. It's a monetary dispute. Reuven is the defendant, say. Shimon is the plaintiff. Shimon says, I want my $1,000 back. Reuven says, I don't know what you're talking about, or I don't owe you this, or I owe you that, whatever it is. And we have the witnesses here. Not a life and death situation. Yet he says, ma'aymin. Ma'aymin means we threaten them, or we speak very, very we speak with a lot of intensity to them. And what do we say? We tell them the koyach of Eidus Sheker and the boishes, the shame in Olam Haza, in this world, and in Olam Haba. And then we investigate each witness independently without anybody in the room, cross-examination by the Sanhedrin, by the court, before the proper verdict can emerge from the mouths of the judges. We don't have any other mitzvah or sin in Yiddishkeit where this language is used. Let's say somebody is about to violate Shabbos. Violation of Shabbos, if it's done willingly with witnesses and warnings, warranted the death penalty. Somebody is about to engage in idolatry. It warrants the death penalty. Somebody is about to engage in other cardinal sins that warrant the death penalty. It wasn't easy to get the death penalty. There had to be witnesses, and they had to warn the person, and the person had to acknowledge the warning and do it right after the warning. It was extremely difficult. But what did the warning consist of? They told him, you're not allowed to do this, and if you do this, there's this and this punishment, in order to prevent the person. If the person went on and did it, the person went on and did it. Sometimes there was a punishment of lashes. Sometimes it's just a monetary issue, like in this case. Sometimes it's death penalty. So when you're dealing with issues that may warrant the death penalty, serious sins, we never find that the halacha comes and says, tell the person, do you know the shame you're going to experience in this world and in the next world? Or even if not in this world, at least in the next world? We never speak about that. We never speak about the boishes, the shame. Why is it? And you might say, because really, that's superfluous. What significance is there to the shame relative to the act itself? If somebody is stealing, the shame is inferior to the seriousness of the act. The shame is basically what other people are going to think of you. That's almost, it's not irrelevant, but it's far less important than the act itself. Say a spouse betrays the other spouse. A husband betrays a wife betrays a spouse, a husband. If people find out, if the spouse finds out, if other people find out, there's shame. But far more important than the shame is the act, the betrayal. If what I'm concerned of is the shame, it means I actually need a lot of help. Because I don't really see it as wrong. It's only the problem that there's cameras. The problem is there's Google. This problem is that whatever you do, wherever you go, there's somebody with a phone taking videos. That's the only issue. Fine, listen. If that's the only thing that's going to stop you, zol zayin azoy. I mean, it's better than nothing. But the shame is not the core issue. The shame of other people I'm talking about. What's more important is it's a shameful act in and of itself. That's far more important. And that's why when they tell the person, you're not allowed to light a fire on Shabbos, God said you're not allowed to light a fire on Shabbos, you don't need a better argument than that. The fact that there's going to be boishes, no, there'll be boishes. In Olam Haza, in Olam Haba. That doesn't add much to the power of the argument, which should be the most persuading argument, which is, you're not allowed to do it. The act itself is a great betrayal of everything, of reality, of truth, of your God, of yourself. Here, we don't come to the witnesses and say, it's forbidden to lie. You're not allowed to lie. We speak about the koyach of edus sheker and the boishes, something unique. The shame you're going to have in this world, and the shame you're also going to have in Olam Haba. So we have an interesting paradox. What are they lying about? If they're lying, we don't know. But what are they lying about? They're lying about $100. In other words, if their lie goes through, it's going to cost Reuven $100. And he doesn't owe him $100. Okay, it's a serious thing. You're not allowed to take away $100 from somebody who doesn't deserve it. But we're talking about mammon. It could be $1, it could be $100, it could be $20 million. But the point is, it can even be a very small loss. When it comes to a sin of that's going to warrant a death penalty, a false witness who testifies falsely against somebody else with money doesn't get the death penalty. There's something called Edim Zaymamin, where you do to the witness what he wanted to do to the other person. So if I wanted to cost you, if I wanted that he should get from you $100, I may have to pay those $100. That may be the penalty. Yet here you talk about the shame in this world and the shame in the next world. When it comes to other prohibitions that warrant the death penalty, we don't use this language. Only by witnesses. Something unique. Another very interesting halacha when it comes to false witnesses. If they catch two witnesses as lying, again, Edim Zayim and two other witnesses say, how could you say that Reuven borrowed money from Shimon in Monsey last Sunday when you were in Miami? You ran away from the weather. I saw you in Miami on the boardwalk. Sunday, 1 o'clock p.m. These are called Edim Zayim. If the verdict didn't happen yet, they now have to pay the $100 that they tried to exact from the innocent person. The halacha then is that they have to send, Bezdin has to send letters to all Jewish communities the world over, telling them the story. Everybody has to find out about it. It needs hachraz, it has to be announced verbally and through letters. We don't have a parallel for this. There are another few situations where there's a death penalty and they notify the communities. For example, a false prophet, a zaken mamre. A zaken mamre is an elderly sage who rebels against the Sanhedrin and wants to make a new religion. I understand there's also a death penalty. Ben Sair Umayra, there's a death penalty. Here you're dealing with a guy who tried stealing $100, not stealing, lying about $100. And yet here the Torah obligates that a message goes to the whole Klal Yisrael about these two witnesses and what they tried to do. The answer to this is, because there's something about testifying falsely that is unique. Even different than any other sin in the Torah, even cardinal sins of the highest nature, of the worst nature, heinous sins, Some of them that could warrant Chalila the death penalty if the circumstances concur, which again, it's very rare. But I'm not talking about how rare it is. I'm talking about the potential of this sin to warrant a death penalty. There's something unique about false testimony, even if it's about $50. And for this, we have to zoom out a little bit. We spoke last week about zooming in and zooming out. We got to zoom out. If you want to ask the question, who are you? What is your purpose of creation? What is your raison d'etre for the French contingency? One of the most powerful descriptions was given by the Navi Yeshaya. Yeshaya HaNavi, in chapter Perik Mem Gimel, Isaiah chapter 43, uses two words that are not just descriptive words in terms of how we live, but they get to the core, to the quintessence of what it means to be alive as a Jew. And the words Yeshaya Navi says is, Atem Eidai Ne'um Hashem. God says, you are my edus. You are my witnesses. He continues it, he repeats it again, Yeshaya Navi. He says, Atem Eidai, you are my witnesses, Va'ani Keil, and I am God. Come, the Chazal, our sages, in Sifri, Kuf Mem Vav, section 146, I think, and the Sifri, these are the Tanoim, say, what is the meaning of the juxtaposition of the words, you are my witnesses and I am God? And I quote, that the sages of the Mishnah, the sages of Sifri say, Hashem says, one depends on the other. Im atem eidai ani keil. Im atem loy eidai ani loy keil. Translation, if you are my witnesses, I'm a God. If you are not my witnesses, kevayachol, I'm not God. In other words, I need testimony that I'm God. If you testify, I'm God. If you don't testify, ani loy keil. For me to be keil, for me to be God, I need witnesses. I need people to proclaim it, to say the truth. A witness testifies to the story, testifies about the story, about the event. Im atem eidai ani keil. Im atem lo eidai ani lo keil. What does this mean? What is the Rebbeinu Shalom saying when he says, you are my witnesses? What is the definition of a witness? What happens when a story has a witness and a story doesn't have a witness? When a story doesn't have a witness, then the story may have happened, but for all practical purposes, nobody knows about it. Meaning, no lessons are learned. There's no realization of it. It doesn't impact anybody besides those who were involved in the event, whether it was one person or two people, whether it's an event of nature, whether it's an interaction between people, whatever the event was. The witness or witnesses bring the event to revelation. They bring it out to his galus, it becomes revealed. If there are witnesses, the story gets told, the story gets shared, the story can be brought to court. Things could be done to repair the situation or to learn from the situation or to fix up the situation or to exact justice or penalize or warn others or whatever the situation warrants. So God says, Atem eidai, I want you to know who you are. What's the definition of your life? You are my witness. I need you as a witness. What is this nature? What is the nature of this testimony? What am I witness? What am I serving as a witness for? He says, for me. For my existence. Atem eidai ne'um Hashem v'ani keil. So the Gemara, Maseches Yuma, at the end of Tractate Yuma, and the Rambam and Hilchos Yesodei HaTorah and other sources explain what this means. It says, V'ahavtas Hashem Elokecha. Say Chazal, Maseches Yuma and Sifri, V'ahavtas Hashem Elokecha means not just you should love, Sheyehei Shem Shamayim Misohev Al Yodcha. The name of God should become beloved through you. When a Jew walks the face of the planet, when you open up your eyes in the morning, the greatest and deepest definition of your existence is you're a witness. When a person looks at you, when a person looks at me, he's basically observing a witness. A witness to what? You're testifying about Hashem. Sheyehei Shem Shabayim misahev al yadcha. So the Gemara says, when somebody speaks pleasantly with other people, when somebody is an honest person, when somebody behaves ethically, when somebody is a person filled with love, filled with compassion, filled with truthfulness, this person becomes a witness of what Hashem is. Pasuk says, you should cleave to him. Ask Chazal, how do you cleave to him? And they answer, Mahu rachum af ata rachum. Mahu chanun af ata chanun. Just as he's compassionate, you be compassionate. Just as he's gracious, you be gracious. Means when I employ compassion, when I employ graciousness, when I employ love, when I employ kindness, when I live that type of life, I become an aid. I become a witness. Sheyehei Shem Shamayim misahev al yadcha. A person looks at you and they could learn from you what God is, who God is. Why? Because you are a manifestation of his light in this world. You are a witness to the presence and to the nature and to the character of the Rebbeinu Shalom. And Hashem says it goes to such a degree, it's so profound, that on this depends if I could be a God. Because Ani Kael doesn't mean I'm a God in some transcendent, abstract, hidden heaven above there. It means Ani Kael, I'm a God in the world. What makes me a God in the world? You. If you become the manifestation of godliness in the world, if you become an ambassador of God in the world, what does it mean, ambassador of God in the world? I'm ambassador of love, an ambassador of light, an ambassador of hope. So Ani Kael, through you we have the testimony, the edus, atamedai. But if you're not my witnesses, then it remains completely hidden, completely unknown. And on this, he says, the Gemara sings the pasuk, that on this the Navi says, that Rebbeinu Shalom says, Yisrael asher b'cha espar. The Jew in whom I can, so to speak, brag, or become beautiful, or boast. So it's not about boastfulness or bragging. Aspire is from the word tiferes. You reflect my beauty. I become beautiful through you. So I could look at somebody and I watch them. And when I see a certain type of behavior, what do I say? What is my impression? What is my instinct? What am I experiencing? This person's God must be a beautiful God. This person's God I like. This person's God I love. This person's God I want to connect to. This person's God can change my world. This person's God can produce such a person. Then I want to have such a connection. I want to emulate this. What is your secret? What is this light that you're carrying? What is this that you're representing? What is it that you have inside? When does a Jew serve as a witness? This is 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. There's no distinction of where I am, when I am. I am always a witness. A witness, first of all, vis-a-vis myself, and a witness to other people. What does it mean that I'm a witness? It doesn't mean that every moment in life is identical. To be a witness, in this case, changes from moment to moment. But in whatever the situation is, I am an aid. I am an aid to Hashem. I'm an aid, a witness to the divine. And that's a choice a person makes every moment. Am I living now as a witness to God's truth, to God's love, to God's infinity? Or I have shirked the responsibility and abdicated. Very good. Like when Kaiser Wilhelm abdicated the throne, right? In 1937 and 1938. That was the word. Abdicated. I abdicate the throne. The king is still alive, but the king goes into exile. I tell myself now, I'm not a witness, consciously or unconsciously. Maybe because of weakness or because of fear. On the other hand, every moment I can choose to be a witness. In other words, my life is a testimony to who Hashem is. So my life is a testimony to fearlessness. God is fearless. My life is a testimony to confidence. God is confident. My life is a testimony to love. God is love. My life is a testimony to truth. God is truth. My life is a testimony to honesty. Keil rachum v'chanon erech apayim v'rav chesed ve'emes. The Ramak, Rabbi Moshe Cordovera, wrote a sefer called Toimet Dvoira, the Palm of Dvoira. In the Palm of Dvoira, he explains that the 13 attributes of compassion, Yud Gimel Midas HaRachamim, are essentially attributes that each person ought to cultivate in order to mirror that attribute in Hashem. Every morning before davening, there is a section that everyone says, but most people just go through because one of those sections, Rabbi Yishmael Omer, B'shloish Esrei Midos HaTorah Nidreshes Behen. Rabbi Yishmael says there are 13 methods in order to explain Torah. Moshe Rabbeinu gave the Jewish people what we call methodology. 13 ingredients, 13 formulas through which you can interpret the text of Tanakh. Kal v'choymek, Zereh Shaveh, Binyanov, Klal, Prat, all down to Shnei Ksuvim HaKushim Zezeh. The Noam Elimelech says, Rabbi Yishmael Omer, B'shloish Esrei Midos HaTorah Nidreshes. The only way a person could darshan Torah, the only way a person can understand and expound Torah is if he or she cultivates the Shloish Esrei Midos, the 13 attributes. B'shloish Esrei Midos HaTorah Nidreshes. Then their Torah is worth studying, is worth learning, is worth expounding on. So at every moment I can choose to be a witness. A witness of what? I could choose to be a witness of some devilish, dark force, and I become a witness to that through my behavior, through my words, through my actions, through my thoughts, or I could become a witness towards infinity, a witness towards truth, a witness towards compassion. You look at me, I look at you, and you become a mirror. You're a witness. You're reflecting a story. Which story? The story of divine love, the story of divine truth, the story of divine compassion, the story of divine infinity, the story of divine wisdom, the story of divine honesty. The fact that Hashem has to say, Atem Eda, you're my witnesses, means there's a choice. It could be the other way. If it's pre-programmed, then you don't have to tell somebody to do it. Atem Eda means I have to choose. And the reason is because there's often a battle inside of me. And I have to choose which self I want to embrace and pursue at this very moment. I may completely feel not like a witness. I say, I'm a witness? Got the wrong guy. You got the wrong person. I'm not a witness. In fact, there's a famous pasuk in Vayikra, Im lo yagid v'nosa avoinai. If somebody knows testimony, but they refuse to give it, you don't want to get into a fight with anybody. That's a sin. We see it often, sadly, people who know about things going on, but they don't want to talk. We become accomplices to the crime. People don't realize this. What do I have to talk? What do I need a headache for? You have to talk to save others. It's very nice to become a saint on everybody else's cheshbon and say, I'm good with everybody. There's no such a thing being good with everybody. If I'm good with criminals, I'm also a criminal. May oivai techakmeini. You become, David Amal says, may oivai techakmeini. So on one level it means outsmart me. Let me outsmart my enemies. But there's a much deeper interpretation. May oivai techakmeini. as they say in Yiddish, Sag mir, wer deine Feind sein, and will ich dir sagen, wer du bist. I'll find out who you are from your enemies. I was once lecturing, as I said, listen, if you want to know who the Jewish people are, look at our enemies. Don't look at our friends. You want to understand who the Jews are? Look at their enemies. That's it you have to know. Show me your enemies, I'll tell you who you are. I said, look at the Jewish people's enemies. At that time, Ahmadinejad, Osama bin Laden, Nasrallah, Yasser Arafat. And I said, and if these are our enemies, you can't get a greater compliment. When I see that the one who hates you is the one who loves abuse and genocide and murder and dances in the blood of innocent people, and he hates you, it means you're doing something right. It's a compliment. If I know a truth and I'm silent because I like to be good with everybody, I become an accomplice. Evil is not perpetrated by evil people doing evil things. Evil can get away with evil because of good people who put their finger to their mouth. Shh. We don't make waves. Everything goes under the carpet. And as a result of that, good people get hurt. So the Torah says, Im lo yagid v'nosa avoynai. I become responsible. I become responsible. When I live in this world, I can't just close my mouth and close my eye and make myself blind and deaf. It's a luxury one cannot afford in a world where you were created to be a witness. To be a witness to truth. To be a witness through goodness that you embody, and part of that is to be able to tell the truth. So it could be a divine world. But let's now take it to the next level. Sometimes I look at myself and I say, I'm not a witness to God. I am a witness to the devil. You want to see the devil? I'm not talking about you, I'm talking about me. You want to see what somebody once told me? Rabbi Jacobson, I don't have skeletons in the closet. I have skeletons everywhere, outside of the closet too. My demons and ghosts are not hidden, they're out in the open. I once gave a lecture here on a Shabbos, and the title was, Why is Life a Roller Coaster? So I met somebody in the street Shabbos morning. He says, by the way, I'm not coming to your lecture. I said, wow, that's mildly polite. You don't have to come to the lecture, but why are you telling me that you're not coming to the lecture? Either you think I don't have emotions, or you're just trying to make a point. You want to deflate my arrogance. What is this? He says, no, I like you, but your title is not relevant to me. I said, really? My title is not relevant to you? He says, absolutely not. My life is not a roller coaster. My life is downhill all the time. Roller coaster goes up and down. My life doesn't go up, just goes down. I have no interest. I have no relevance to your lecture. So I say, I'm a witness to God. I'm no witness to anything. You come knocking on the door, you say, you're a witness, not me. Go to my neighbor. He's a witness. She's a witness, not me. I'm not a witness to this. For this, we have to remember the story that once happened with the Baal Shem Tov. He had a student who came to him and said, Rabbi, I would like to see Eliyahu Hanavi. I want to see Elijah the prophet. He says, it's not for you. It's fine. You need to see yourself. You don't need to see Eliyahu Hanavi. Some people need Gilui Eliyahu. Some people need Gilui HaNeshama. It's deeper than Gilui Eliyahu for them. He said, no, I want to see Eliyahu. And he begged and nudged. The Rebbe Baal Shem Tov said, okay, Pesach is coming. Take a wagon, fill it up with food. Travel to this and this city. At the edge of the city, you'll see a forest. In the forest, you'll see a little home. Spend over there the first 2 days of Pesach, and you'll see Eliyahu Hanavi. Gewaldig, wow. Fills up his wagon with food. He was a Balabat Shayid, somewhat affluent, and he travels, and he comes to the hut, to the little home. It was a caved-in home. And he knocks on the door. It's an hour before Lichtzenden. And the woman comes out. How can I help you? And he says, I want to stay here for the first 2 days of Pesach. She says, you really don't want to stay here. We are so poor. We got nothing. He says, I have food. I just need a place to stay. She says, we're a very poor family. It's not going to be comfortable for you. He says, it's almost Yom Tov. I have nowhere to go. Let me stay here. She sends out her 9 children. They have never seen so much food in their life. They unload the wagon, they bring it into his azaz sosim v'simcha. In Pesach, it looked like Purim. It actually looked like Zman Cheruseinu. They felt so emancipated and free and happy. They never tasted so many vegetables, so many fruits, so much fish, so much chicken, so much meat, so much matzah, so much wine. It was a gewalt. It was beautiful. There was only one issue. No Eliyahu Hanavi. The man was a fine man. The lady was a fine lady. God-fearing Jews. Simple, ehrliche Yidden. Mamish, very poor. Fine family, but desperately and helplessly poor, it seemed. Really poverty-stricken. There was nothing complete in that home. No mattresses. They slept on the straw on the floor. There was a struggling household in terms of finances. Fine Jews, but not Eliyahu Hanavi. And he sat through the first Seder, and he sat through the second Seder, and he sat through the second day, and Chol HaMoed came, and he went home very disappointed. And he comes back to the Baal Shem Tov, and he says, you told me I'm going to go there and see Eliyahu Hanavi. I did not see Eliyahu Hanavi. So the Baal Shem Tov said, go back there. Was jetzt? He says, don't go into the house. Stay outside the house and linger around the house. No, his Rebbe said, he didn't ask questions, and he went. And the man comes back there, and it's Chol HaMoed Pesach, and he's standing outside the house, and the windows are broken, so you can hear everything going on in the house. And after some time, he hears a conversation between the husband and the wife. And the husband turns to the wife and says, you know, I always said I'm a shlamazel. I always said I don't have mazel. But I have to say, this Erev Pesach, I was proven wrong. I had mazel. She says, what are you talking about? He says, what were the chances that a wealthy Jew carrying a wagon filled with food happened to get stuck right in the proximity of our home and chose to stay with us on Pesach? That's called mazel. And his wife looks at him and says, Ohr Chaim Yankel, Herr Reden Narishkeit. Stop speaking rubbish. What mazel when mazel? It was Eliyahu Hanavi. It was Eliyahu Hanavi who came to feed our hungry children. The man standing outside heard these words. And then he understood what the Baal Shem Tov was saying. He was looking for Eliyahu Hanavi. The Baal Shem Tov said, you want to see Eliyahu Hanavi? Fill up a wagon with food, feed 9 hungry children, then look in the mirror and you'll see Eliyahu Hanavi. So a person wakes up, takes a look in the mirror and says, I don't see Eliyahu Hanavi. I see the Satan. I see darkness, I see depression, I see despair, I see toxicity, I see trauma, I see fear, I see this, I see that. So the Baal Shem Tov says, take a wagon, load it up with food, go feed 9 hungry children, then take a look in the mirror, and you'll see Eliyahu Hanavi. So I sometimes look at myself, I'm not the witness. I'm the witness for everything pessimistic in the world. You want the bad news, you come to me. You know, some people, you get off the phone with them and you get into a bad mood. They always know how to accentuate the darkness, especially if their despair is coupled with cynicism. That's a lethal combination. Cynicism with despair is a wonderful conversation if you want to get into a bad mood. Sometimes you're off the phone with somebody and you're like heavy, you know, you need a salt bath for like 4 hours. Or like you need to hike the Bear Mountains for 8 hours. Or whatever it is, you need a good few therapy sessions or cleansing sessions. Sometimes you get off the phone with somebody and you're inspired. You're related. What inspires you? It's not just what they are. What inspires you, they allowed you to see something in yourself that's different. That's the profound message of Yeshaya Navi when the Rebbeinu Shalom says, Atem Eida, you're my witnesses. It means you're going to doubt it. There are times you're going to say, me? You got the wrong guy. I'm the pessimist. I'm the problem case. I'm not a witness to infinity. I'm not a witness to love. I'm not a witness to compassion. Maybe Yom Kippur by Ne'ilah, by mistake. Maybe a good day. Generally speaking, I'm not a witness. I'm a witness to darkness. I'm a witness to trauma. So he says, Im lo yagid v'nosa havayna. If you hide the fact that you're a witness, that's your greatest mistake. The fact that you don't see yourself as a witness to Hashem, the fact that you don't see your life as having the ability at every moment of the day to serve as a testimony to infinite love, to infinite wisdom, to infinite truth. Does this mean that there are other forces inside of me? Of course it means there are other forces inside of me. That's why I don't want to call myself a witness. That's why I say, don't go to me, go to somebody else. On this, the Torah says, this is my greatest mistake. The greatest tragedy, Rabbi Aaron Karliner once said, the greatest tragedy in life is when a prince forgets that he's a prince and decides that he's a peasant. When the prince decides that he's filthy and messy and hopeless, that's the greatest. We say in Ma'ir, V'haser Satan milfanenu me'acharenu, remove Satan from before us and from behind us. I understand why you want to remove Satan from before you. He's not good as a tour guide. But what's wrong if the Satan is behind me? What's the difference? He's behind me. I'm hiking and he's behind me. What do I care? Why me'acharenu? So the Chayz of Lublin said, there's two Satans. There's the Satan in front of you who serves as a tour guide. Him you can get rid of. But there's a much deeper Satan. After you made the mistakes, he's the guy behind you. He comes in the aftermath and he says, I always told you that you're a miserable person. That voice, you know that you're doomed. You know that you're a failure. You know that you can't control your temper. You know that you can't have a good marriage. You know that you have to be miserable. You know that you're dysfunctional. You know that deep down you're just completely messed up. Now let's figure out who to blame. But the fact is, that's the guy behind me in the aftermath. And in many ways, as he put it, he said, I'm not so afraid of a sin. You know why? Because for a sin, there's tshuva. What I'm more afraid is from the depression because of the sin. Because for that, I don't do tshuva because I think it's a holy thing. When you're depressed because you sin, you seem like a saintly person. We call it JewishGuilt.com. JewishGuilt.com seems holy. The more guilty, the more divine. That's a different type of Satan. That's V'aseh Satan me'acharenu. The fact that I don't really believe I'm a witness. I don't believe that at every single moment I can choose right now, right here, whatever the circumstances are, I can choose my innermost values and choose to serve as a witness to the power of infinity, to the power of truth, to the power of love. At every single moment, Atam Eidai. This is the very raison d'etre of a person. This is not a detail of life. This is not something I do on Shabbos or Yom Tov or in a time of Chizuk or in a time of Iserus. This is your definition. Atem Eidai, this is who you are. You are a witness to infinity. You are a witness to the Ribbono Shel Olam and everything that's represented by Hashem. Through your life. How you speak, how you behave, how you communicate, how you interact. In a difficult moment, in an easy moment, in a challenging moment, in a moment of tests, in a moment of joy, in a moment of exhilaration. Because this is the case. Therefore, when it comes to Eidus Sheker, when it comes to testifying falsely, there is something that exists in this particular sin that doesn't exist in any other Avera, any other sin in the world. Even those which are very, very serious, they affect an individual aspect of the relationship. When it comes to Eidus Sheker, when I'm testifying falsely, what am I doing? I'm doing something that undermines and runs contrary to the very definition, to the very core of my identity. It's something that betrays not a detail, not an aspect of my relationship with Hashem. It rather undermines the very essence of who I am. I'm serving as a witness. I'm going to court and saying, I'm a witness. To what? To a lie. I'm a witness to theft. I'm a witness to manipulation. I'm a witness to untruth. I take my power of testimony, which is the very power that created me. It's the very fuel, it's the oxygen of my soul, because it's the purpose of my soul. And the purpose of every being is the oxygen of the being. When we speak about the divine energy of something, it means the purpose of it. I'm taking the very fuel, the very oxygen of my soul, which is that I'm an aid, I'm a witness, and I come and I say, I'm a witness. I'm going to testify. Through me, you will find out the story. And what's the story? The story is a lie. And the definition of God is Hashem Elokim Emes. The Gemara says, Chaysamah shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu Emes. The seal of God is truthfulness. That's the Chaysamah, that's his seal, Emes. Here I'm saying a lie. I take my very mahus, my very essence, and I betray it. My whole mahus is to be an aid, atam eidai, and I completely betray it. So therefore, we tell the Eidus Sheker, the boishes, the shame, ba'olam haza, and also ba'olam haba. The definition of shame is different than many other causes of aggravation. Do you know that when somebody maims somebody else, when somebody wounds somebody, what is the penalty according to Torah? Parshas Mishpatim, we have 5 penalties. Nezek, tsar, ripui, sheves, and boishes. Nezek is the physical harm. Tsar is the physical pain, the aggravation. Ripui is medical costs. Sheves is disability. These are all tangible, monetary, concrete losses. Then there's boishes. What's boishes? Boishes is the shame of the experience. And here, there's no uniform number. The Mishnah says, Hakol lefi ha'mevayesh v'hamizbayesh. You have to see who did it and who they did it to. On many levels, somebody says, I was embarrassed. What happened? You have medical expenses. Somebody wounded you. There's any concrete loss here? No. On the other hand, we know that when somebody is ashamed, what happens? When somebody feels shame, when somebody looks at themselves as a shameful person, there's no person. You may not be able to see it on the outside. My body may be wholesome. My physique may be perfect. But if I'm living with inner shame, I lose my dignity as a person. Ich bin kein Mensch nicht. The Gemara says, you shame somebody, it's like killing them. Why'd you kill them? They go home to drink a nice coffee. The answer is because shame, what it does is, on the outside everything is perfect, but it kills my soul. I look at myself and I see myself as a worthless person. That's why people who were shamed as children and they grow up with inner shame, it's not a little wound. It's sometimes a wound that eats up on everything else. They want to run a business, they can't. They want to run a home, they can't. They want to have a good marriage, they can't. It eats up in everything because it's almost like the delegitimization of self. That's what shame is. It's intangible. Nezek, tsar, ripu, there's no medical costs. Today we have therapy costs. Part of that is the shame. But it's not tangible in the physical world. Nezek, tsar, ripu, sheves. Boishes is something that on the outside it may seem meaningless to somebody. Somebody who is not aware of it, doesn't even know anything happened. But internally, ich bin nicht kein Mensch. I don't feel like a person. I may have a black and blue. I may be black and blue. I may have a wound. I may have a serious wound. Okay? You have to pay me. Whatever you did it, you got to pay me. Nezek, a lot of payment. But then there's something else. There's the shame, the delegitimization of it. What do we tell the 8 sheker that we don't say by any other sin? We tell them the boishes, the shame, ba'olam haza and ba'olam haba. In both worlds. Why? Because a Jew is a combination of neshama and guf, soul and body. Which part of us is a witness to God? Both. My body is a witness to God, and my soul is a witness to God. And the marriage of both of them is a witness. So the boishes is ba'olam haza, as the soul and the body. The boishes is also ba'olam haba. The Gemara in Masechta Sanhedrin, Daf Chavtes, tells the story of Izevel. You remember the story of Achav and Izevel? Her husband wanted the vineyard of Nevois, and he didn't want to sell it because it was his inheritance from his ancestors. And what does Izevel suggest? She suggests hiring false witnesses to testify that he cursed the king, and thus he'll be executed, and his field, his vineyard, will be taken to the king. They do it, and Eliyahu comes to Achav, the king, Izevel, and says the three words, Haratzachta v'gam yarashta. You murdered, and now you're going to inherit too. But here's the fascinating thing. The pasuk says that Izevel says, let's hire 2 witnesses to testify falsely. You know what she calls them? Bnei Belial. Horrible people. So the Gemara says that Bezdin used to tell witnesses, in order to explain to them the need to be truthful, they said, we want you to know that the people who hired you and paid you to do this, they are the ones who will disgrace you most. You think you're being honored by them. They're paying you. They look at you like dirty, filthy people. Izeva was a machshefa marshas. She was the murderer. But she called them Bnei Belial. You're ready to sell your soul for the devil. What type of person is this? Somebody who has no conscience. Have you no shame, we say? Have you no shame? There are people who sin. You sin out of weakness. But here you sell yourself. You're not a mensch. Have you no shame? You sell your mother, you sell your brother, you sell your God, you sell truth for a couple of dollars. Have you no shame? It's $50. But the shame is lacking. So that's in this world. But we don't only speak about this world. We speak about also Olam Haba. Olam Haba is a different type of shame. It's not the people who are hiring you. They're not going to be in Olam Haba. It's the shame of denying your very humanity. What is the definition of a human being? You're a witness. An animal can't choose to be a witness. An animal is a witness to the science of creation, to the brilliant systems of creation. But a chimpanzee is a chimpanzee. And chimpanzees can't decide and say, we got to recreate the models of our society. Doesn't happen that way. There's a genetic code that they follow, which reflects the wisdom of the Creator in unbelievable ways. But it's not a witness. The person, what does it mean to be a human being? What makes me human? What is the definition of a human being? What is the definition of a Jew? Yisrael asher b'cha espar. I could look at the world and I could look at myself, God says, and says, you want to know who I am? Look at this person. This person is a living embodiment, what we call Kiddush Hashem. A living embodiment. Look at this person. It's that I could be able to tell that to myself and say, I want to be able to see myself in that light, to serve as that witness. A witness to characteristics I can't expect from an animal who lives in its orbit, pre-programmed genetic code, which it's supposed to live in. It's a witness in the sense to the glory of creation. It's a witness to creation. The human being, the Jew, is a witness to Creator. A witness to creation is a beautiful thing. The sun is a witness to creation. The moon is a witness. Every cell is a witness to creation. Every grain of sand is a witness to creation. Every blade of grass, every flake of snow, to be contemporary, is a witness to creation. The person, Atem Eidai, you are a witness to Creator. You're a witness, Vanikel. The Eid Sheker betrays that in the deepest sense. And here we see an interesting thing finally. Rambam says a halacha. What happens? What happens if I come to you and I say, listen, I'm your Rebbe. You've been learning with me for 50 years. You know me. You know that nobody bribes me. You could give me all the money in the world. You never caught me by a lie in 50 years. and I'm telling you that he borrowed $10,000 from me. I need you as a witness. Your Rebbe, a great man. He said, I never lied. And you know he's right. He never lied. I need you as a witness. He borrowed and I don't have a witness. I need you as a second witness. And the Rambam says, if you tell your Rebbe, yes, hareza 8 sheker. You're a liar. You're a false witness, even though it's your Rebbe. It just means he's became biased and he took you into the world of sheker. What happens if he says, you know what? Don't lie. I'll tell you what I want from you. It's a fascinating halacha. Just come to court and stand near the second witness. Don't say a word. You know why? The borrower knows the truth. He knows the truth, but he knows I only have one witness. With one witness, he may have to take an oath, but it's not a full legal, it's not going to create a full legal verdict that he has to pay. Don't lie. I don't want you to lie. Just stand there. He might think, ooh, there's a second witness. You don't open your mouth. And you know what? That may motivate him to say the truth. That may motivate him to say the truth. If I could think that the person may be lying and wants me to manipulate the borrower, I understand. But it could be my Rebbe. And I know he's saying, I'm not lying. I'm just standing there. So the person could say, what's the problem? If the borrower will admit, great. You actually saved a man from lying and from stealing. And if he doesn't admit, okay. So that means I didn't harm in any way. I didn't add and I didn't take away. I stood there via glump. Don't make a face. You know, people make faces. Judges get very annoyed when people make faces in court. Don't make a face. Don't say a word. Stand there like a goylem. Like a goylem, stand there. The Rambam says, don't do a word. The monafshech. If the loivik admits, beautiful. You just saved the Jew. You saved both of them, the loiva, the malva. If he doesn't, okay, so you didn't lose anything. What's the halacha? The halacha is hareza asur v'alzeh v'kayoytze boinema midvar sheket tirchak. I didn't say a word. This is why the Torah says, stay far away from a lie. Here I didn't lie, but I came close to a lie. Just by standing there, I might have given a false impression. The borrower could ask me, are you going to testify? And I'd say no, but he may not ask me. He may just get a little intimidated. This is called midvar sheket tirchak. So a person will say, what's the big deal? The answer is getting even close to false testimony is betraying the core of what it means to be a human. And that's why this was the unique exception, that when this happened, they sent out letters to the entire people. It was a case of $100. They lied. They said Reuven owes him $100. He didn't owe him $100. Wasn't a death penalty. Wasn't a Navi Sheker. Wasn't a Zokin Mamre. Everybody has to know. Because this story represents taking the very power of who you are, the very oxygen, the very fuel that gives your life all of its meaning and all of its purpose, and betraying it. And betraying it at its core. And it's not about if it was $100, $1,000, $20 million, or $100 million. Obviously, $100 million has far more serious consequences financially. But it's the point that I used my power as a witness to support untruth. And that's why it's here that the Torah says you tell the Eidos words that you don't say anywhere else about the boishes. To sell your soul and to testify. A lie is the very, very act that delegitimizes and undermines, cuts away at the core of who you are at every single moment of your life, which is a witness to divine infinity. Have a wonderful week.
This class is brought to you by theyeshiva.net. Please help us continue the classes. Make even a small contribution at www.theyeshiva.net/donate.